Welcome to My Mentor. This is a platform that seeks to provide world-class mentoring content by leveraging on the skills, experiences, wisdom, and knowledge of established professionals, leaders, business people, and entrepreneurs. We seek to inspire, empower, and challenge professionals and individuals to reach the next level in their professional, business, and career leadership journeys. Welcome to the next level. Trevor Dunn, thank you so much for making time to be here today. Really appreciate it. I'm very excited about this conversation. You're obviously a senior project manager at ABB, but maybe let's kick off with your educational background. You studied engineering, electrical engineering at WITS. Why electrical engineering and not a CA or something else?
It actually goes down to my childhood in a way. My father is an electrical engineer as well.
Okay.
I think he inspired me to be that just in the way his mannerisms are and how he wants to do things himself.
Yeah.
Wants to see how things work, wants to see the better in devices and people and whatnot. So I think that was my inspiration. Because of his bias towards engineering, he obviously gave me toys that would link into that. Lego, Meccano, those were the kind of toys I was playing with, and they would bring out my creative skill, which is maybe not necessarily a trait people think of with an electrical engineer, but you realize that engineering is not just maths, it's not just physics, it's not just the sciences, but it's the creative design and use of these things. And so I think my love for engineering starts from a young age. My parents were very intentional in asking me quite regularly, when I say regularly, not weekly, but more on a quarterly basis, if I could say that.
Okay.
What do you want to be when you're older?
Yeah.
And I've never wavered from being an electrical engineer.
Okay.
Which is interesting. I was never a fireman, a policeman, the typical things you see in the movies or whatnot.
Is there anyone else in the family who's an engineer as well, or just your dad?
Just my father, yes.
Okay.
So my sister is a physiotherapist and my mother's a hairdresser. So we've got quite different different flavors.
Yes.
Arts, medical, and then engineering, where my dad and I really link up. So that's where I'll say the journey to engineering started.
Yeah.
I think I've tailored almost my entire life towards it in a maybe good or a bad way. I really enjoyed maths. I really enjoyed science. I really didn't enjoy humanities. Languages were a struggle, but give me the sciences and I'm a happy person.
Yeah.
So I think it just added to, let's say, my bias to being an engineer, to being a scientist in that way. That part of me is always going to be there. In a way, I identify as an engineer,
Okay.
It's the way I think. But I think what's also very important, what my mother did, was she really said, okay, it's great that you want to be an engineer, but you need to look at what was maybe not termed then, but EQ, how to speak to people, how to engage with social events and be a part of something more than just a loner where when you're in engineering faculty still at a university, coding in a dark room and being fed food is your happy place.
Yeah.
So her idea was to rather try and push me in a different way, push me onto the debating team, try and focus on those things. And I think that's what's maybe given me some good all-round skills, that I'm not just going to be a technical specialist in engineering.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and build a team. I'm going to focus on people's strengths to come out.
We'll come back to the leadership aspect in a while. Let's go back to your upbringing, since you just mentioned it now. So your parents obviously played a big role, in influencing you to become an engineer. It's something that you would say from a young age you knew you were going to become. What else within those formative years do you believe took place that helped you to become the person that you are? What values were instilled from a family setup, from a community setup during those early years that made you the person that you are today?
Sure. That's a tough question. I think it's everyday living, being exposed to things that support the idea,
Yeah.
and continuous learning. So it sounds so silly, but it's a small thing that, let's say, my dad did. He drove us to school. That was his thing.
Yes.
And in the car, he would be testing us on what we learned yesterday.
Okay.
Which brings to continuous learning. Every day is important.
Yeah.
Every day, whatever you would like to be is what you must strive for and study to get to that thing. With regards to community, I think it was a bit tough in that regard. We didn't, maybe as a family, like integrate with like pure engineering or pure science people. I think academics in the form of professors and all of that were not necessarily a part of our lives.
Yeah.
But obviously my dad's work and the people he involves himself with and being there 9 hours a day means we would go to Bryce, we would see people that would be in that faculty.
Yeah.
And I think that's what inspires you when you see people that you almost want to be like, and then you see how they do and their mannerisms. It just adds to, an additive effect to your life.
Yeah. Okay. And let's go back to your varsity days. So, what made you choose Wits and not UCT or UP or any other university?
It's really just location and the fact that when doing my research about universities,
yes,
it was the one that had a really high standing in engineering.
Okay.
My dad also went there.
Okay.
Enough, the dean at the moment actually studied with him, so it was one really close. I didn't see a need to do any kind of living in res. I avoided that as well in my high school days, just because I think I would have been on the social side of what my mom was building, would have fallen away from the studies rather than focused on them. So I focused on universities that were close by.
Okay.
And I didn't give myself much choice. I only applied to Wits, and I only ever applied for electrical first and mechanical
You knew from
second.
day one, this is where I'm going, this is what I want to do.
Exactly.
Okay.
I planned my life in a way,
Okay.
which obviously didn't leave much room for interpretation and for artistic flair, if I could say that, with trying more bold things. Yes. Because I live in Johannesburg, I've always lived here, Wits made the most sense to me. So yeah, Wits was an easy choice. And
okay, no, that makes sense. And now you're at Wits, you're studying electrical engineering. You mentioned you liked physics and math at school. I presume that also means you were quite smart. That's why you got accepted to study engineering. At Wits, when you got there, I'm sure you found other people who were maybe smarter than you. Was that the case? How did it affect how you viewed yourself?
Yeah, so even in school, just to bring it one step back, I wasn't, let's say, the A's, straight A student.
Okay.
I had A's where I wanted them. As I said before, I struggled, let's say, with the humanities and the languages. So there was always going to be people that were better than me in any shape. There's always people that are worse, and there's always people that are better. And so at university, yes, there was definitely people that were more studious in how they studied. I knew someone that didn't study and he would get straight A's at university. So, you definitely are challenged by those people. But you make a choice. Make a choice either to resent them because they're smart or jump in and be their study partner and learn from them. Yeah. There is an interesting thing I learned in university. It's a single line that says, the best student is not necessarily the best professor or the best teacher. Just because they're great at studying doesn't mean they're great at imparting their knowledge to someone else.
Yes.
And so even though I don't see myself as an A student, I do see myself as a teacher in some ways. I would be maybe as part of the team, the one clarifying the concept when people were misunderstanding. Yes. Not necessarily getting the A, although I did get some in university, but bringing everybody to a place where they're better. Engineering is difficult,
so I mean,
Yeah, sure. So people used to say that spoke to me, you've chosen the most difficult, of the engineering. So
yeah.
I don't know, I'm sure there's more difficult things to do, but
Yeah.
yeah, why not?
And
Take the challenge.
Looking back at varsity, what would you say were some of the memorable moments of that phase of your life?
In my first year, I'll come to the social side, but even the academic side, one of the lecturers said, this is going to shock everybody, but here's an interesting statement. The more you learn, the less you know. Obviously, that's not a complete sentence, but everyone was a bit taken aback, saying, but that doesn't make sense. The more you learn, the more you know. That would make more sense. So no, the more you learn, the more you realize that you don't know everything.
Okay.
You know, and come down from your high horse, realize you don't know everything.
Yeah.
And just like a business is built, no one's doing everything. You know, the same kind of concept as you learn, you realize you know nothing. And I think scientists are noticing that more and more.
Yeah.
You know, trying to prove, let's say, the Big Bang, but realizing that they don't know the parts that would make up nothing.
Yeah.
When it exploded, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, if that's even more than a theory kind of idea.
Yeah. Let's talk about your career. So obviously you studied electrical engineering. When I was much younger, I used to think electrical engineering means you must work at ESCOM. But obviously that's not the case. You work at ABB. Tell us what ABB is, what do they do, where are they based?
Sure. So you mentioned ESCOM. ESCOM is one of our customers.
Okay.
We're one of the biggest suppliers into ESCOM with regards to electrical products. So ABB has positioned themselves in the market as being the end-to-end supplier of products for electrical, from small terminals all the way up to high voltage DC lines out of Corobasa. So we've never shied away from anything that looks like it has electricity in it. And but we've also brought in the services. Maybe the customer doesn't have the expertise to implement this technology into the area, so we have the services to make sure it gets in properly. That's where ABB has been, and it's a company that came from two other companies, a Swiss company and a Swedish company, which was Asia, was a Swedish company, and Brown Boveri, which was a Swiss company, and they merged in the 80s to form ABB, and their core was large machinery for industry, as well as transmission lines, but they've added products, bought companies, and tried to be number one in the world wherever they go. Either number one or number two. They don't really want to be anything else.
It's a product house. You guys sell.
We sell our own products. We implement our own products. We do our own projects, and a large project. So globally, one of the things that I read long ago about, let's say, Brown Boveri, the BB and ABB, is that they're a Swiss company, but they had their subsidiaries in the rest of Europe were larger in size, larger influence than the head office. And I think that's even true now, as a lot of the other, even South Africa is a big project house, is, let's say, even bigger than in Switzerland. Not right now, but that's the kind of ethos that they've had. So they're not trying to hold everything to themselves. They realize they need to have the right people in the right areas, locals, doing the work. So that's where they are.
So as a senior project manager or project engineer, what do you actually do?
To go into a bit of history, I started at ABB as a drive engineer. And a drive is short for a variable speed drive, which is something that controls the speed of a motor. Sounds very basic if I say it like that. But if you look at anything like the electric vehicles that are coming out now, self-driving vehicles, how do you govern the speed of the motor that's driving you? That's a variable speed drive. How does a robot, which looks amazing and is moving around, how do you govern the speed and the position of each arm? That's a variable speed drive. So as soon as you start putting it into a system, which is where engineering really leans into, that's where I was busy. I was busy in all of the major industries, pulp and paper, metal, cement, mining, instilling these products which would control the speed of a motor, especially in, let's say, metal rolling, where you need to turn them, basically roll with two roller pins, the metal into a smaller gauge. So that's where I started at ABB. I realized that there was this other side, automation. We were drive and automation division inside ABB, and I thought, I don't want to just be niched in one specific area. I'd like to be in multiple places. I want to see both sides of the coin. Because I always used to hear, drive guys always get irritated with automation guys because they don't understand what they're trying to give them.
So that sounds to me like it's quite a technical field. Drive, automation, how different are they?
Automation is like AI in a way, just one step back. It's not trying to make massive decisions that AI would try and make. But automation comes in any shape or form. An engineering philosophy, I think, is anything that you're doing more than once, you should automate. If this is a repetitive task, like the printing machine, you're not going to stamp each page like a newspaper. You want to automate this, must happen automatically. Machines must do it. That's where automation comes in. And so even the operator steps back and he just sees icons and values and KPIs in a way. And he's not actually the one doing the physical labor. And I think that's the automation telling the drive what to do. So it's very technical, yes. The business side comes in is that you're speaking to customers that are trying to solve a problem.
Is that what you currently do now?
That's what I'm doing. So I start with our sales engineers, our business development managers, and I go to site and I go see what their problem is. And in some ways, some people use the word engineering as a problem solver. That's like a horrible term in a way, but that's partly what we do. We go there, figure out what your problem is, because maybe you don't have the skills to know what your problem is. So we go there, we go see what the problem is or what the solution might be. We have to design it. So in a way, design is usually associated with arts, with creativity. In a way, that's what we have to do. We have to think outside the box. We have to do something. Sometimes, some of the projects that I've designed do what the customer's not asking for. They don't know what they want in some ways, and so you have to bring your maturity in some ways to tell them, I understand this is what you want to do, but industry is moving this way. These are the new products that are coming out. Don't think old school, think new school. This is what we can do for you more than what you've just asked for in your tender. And so that's the creativity side. That's my mother maybe brought in, and the engineering that my dad brought in. And
it sounds like every day is different.
Completely.
You don't have a typical day, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not crunching numbers or creating, managing finances in let's say, like you say, in the CA kind of environment. I'm managing customers' expectations, bringing change management to their thought patterns and to their team. Because even when I say automation, even in this day and age, when you say Amazon Go, everything's automated behind and you don't have any cashiers, then you see people, they get frustrated. Oh no, you're going to start, eliminating jobs. And, that's the kind of change management you have to bring, which is tough. But you're the person customer facing that has to not bring the bad news, but bring the awesome things that are going to come out of it.
And while you're still on that, what are your views about the potential impact of 4IR, especially in the South African context, as it relates to jobs, as you mentioned, as it relates to economic growth?
I think economic growth will happen due to it. The problem that really needs some deep thought into it is, just like cell phones have left more the aged population behind, where you give a 70-year-old a new touch phone and they will take time to figure this thing out if they don't get frustrated and throw it on the floor, kind of thing. And I think in that way it's the same kind of concept. Technology is going to carry on. No one's stopping research. Things are going to be implemented anyway. We're going to skip steps in a developing nation, where before you would build hospitals, now you have a AI robot that arrives at someone's house and gives them medical attention. So what happened to the doctors that were never there? You know what I mean? You're going to skip many steps in our industry, I think.
So how does one make sure they don't get left behind and become like that 70-year-old who in the future won't be able to figure out what's happening? How do we make sure now we get in line with what's happening around the world?
It's a simple one-word answer, and that's education, and that's it. I think I value education. I see it as the tool that will push every political system, every other system around it to be better. If you keep people from education, from finding new things and exploring and being on the forefront of these technology and whatnot, due to mismanagement or whatever label you want to add to it, that is the first part. Because if you're not never have access to something, you will never know the questions to ask to find out. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I found even in my own life. If I don't know the question to ask, I'll be oblivious. I'll be, ignorant to the potential that can come out of that. Mm-hmm. So I think to really make sure people do not get left behind is to really focus on getting some baseline of education going. Okay. And that's a very long-term view, though. The short-term view to try and get people to not be left behind is to focus on where they're at. So yes, the access is one thing, but individuals can jump in to change a certain person in a community that would then become the hero of the community that they want to inspire the next generation coming forward. Okay. And I think that's something that is very powerful. If you think you're going to do it on your own, you're going to fail. Yeah. You need to almost be mature enough to find that hero of the community, or heroes or heroines or whatever you want to call them.
Someone that's a pathfinder.
And then enable them.
Yeah.
Let them do the work and celebrate the work that is done. So I think that's my.
Let's get back to your current career, so to speak.
Sure.
What made you choose ABB and not any other company?
My dad worked there.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And that's networking.
Is he still working there now?
No, he's retired now.
Okay.
He moved out just at the end.
Yeah.
And because I had actually a good relationship with the people that were there before, in his team and the people around him, because he did introduce me, it made me my onboarding into the culture very simple. I already had that flavor. I already knew, how inclusive they were. And so it made it quite simple. I think in a negative, I haven't moved around a lot. Mm-hmm. And you could say that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I'm building this castle, inside ABB, rather than,
I'm sure ABB is happy.
Yeah, sure. Instead of building, let's say, a sand castle in other places, you know what I mean? I'm building a brick one here.
Yes.
But it comes with its pros and it comes with its cons. I don't know another culture, business culture or corporate culture elsewhere.
Talking about building, so you mentioned you started as a junior and now you're a senior project manager. Engineer, sorry. How did that happen? What process took place for you to rise through the ranks to the position you are in now?
I started ABB in 2009, which was, let's say, a year after the global financial crisis. But South Africa really was delayed in their crisis, if I can say, especially in ABB, because their culture of employing people is very slow, and it has its pros and cons in that. It's con if you're the one working there, because it takes so long to fill a position when someone's left. But the pro is they make sure that position is still necessary, looking forward, which means we went through 2009, 2010 with not retrenching a single person, which is quite fantastic, And I think that's quite a thing you want to be a part of in a company, where they're not trying to cut costs and get rid of people, headcount cut, But it also meant that no one was coming in at that time. It did leave me alone, because two people that were, let's say, my seniors at the time, they emigrated out of the country, which meant I was one of the only drives engineers in my department doing projects, which obviously forced me into being everything. I was any
So you were
project that
thrown into the
looked
deep.
like that. Yeah, I was doing that job.
Yeah.
I was thrown into the deep end, and it meant I had to look for people to support me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know the knowledge. I don't have the knowledge of this product. Let's say, who knows? Who can teach me? What trainings can I go on? What osmosis training is, I would call it, where you sit next to someone and learn while they do it. What can I do to make sure that I hide the fact that we only have me doing the job?
Yes.
You know, and I think that was the first kick in my backside to really get moving and to think a bit more than just being a technical specialist.
Yeah. And
So,
how was that transition for you?
It was tough. I think it was a fiery crucible. You know, it was every problem a customer had and every project that came after was labeled with my name to go do. And let's say the sales guys, while being a junior, were asking me questions I didn't have the answers to, and then you look stupid, you know, and you don't want to look stupid. You want to look like the person that they can come to and ask questions, you know, and be that mentor. And so that drove me to just yearn for information, yearn for interesting things, and it leads into other parts of my life, which I avidly go look at different YouTube sites that build in with more concepts, more ideas, more things that link in with my bias to engineering, which then I've noticed has started coming out in the way I speak to people. Have you thought of this? Have you looked down this avenue? Did you know these people were doing this? You know, mixed reality, is that going to be a thing for electrical engineering, or is it just a fad that's going to come and go?
Let's talk about your leadership as we wrap up. So obviously, because you are a senior project engineer, you've got a team that works under you. Firstly, tell us, how do you define leadership?
Well, just to correct you, I don't have a team underneath me. I have a team around me.
Yes.
We're quite a flat structure in that way. But as projects come, you become the lead engineer. You're assigned that role, and then you do have people underneath you. So it's a frame, but it's not a continuous manager role, if I can say. It's ad hoc, in the moment, sometimes under duress kind of leadership. I find my leadership style is very open-handed, in the fact that I like people to do what they do. I like to bring ideas and be colleagues in this ideation of problem solving or coming up with interesting designs. I don't find myself as being a very dictatorial leader or very strong-willed in that way. And you could say strong-willed is a bad term, but it's not in some instances. You know, if you have to use the military kind of idea, there's no time for discussion when people are shooting at you, kind of thing. It's time for listening, and I think you have to do both in a way. I find I lean towards more of a community type of role, and I think that also leads to the type of people I'm surrounded by. I'm not surrounded by I'm surrounded by people that think, that are there because they went through at least a 4-year degree, maybe a master's. They are thinking a little bit further, and so to think I have all the answers is stupid. So my leadership style is to say, well, I know some things and I'll bring them, but can everybody pull their weights and bring their ideas? But I realize at the end of the day, I'm the one that needs to make the final decision. I'm the one that has to put my name on top of that design or that solution, and I need to be mature enough to own it. So those, I think, are qualities that I've coming out more and more, and I think those are qualities that I think everybody should try and have, is to realize that you don't know everything, and you need to own things, and you need to make decisions.
If you don't know anything, most people would say if you don't know everything, it usually helps to have mentors, people who can train and teach you.
Yeah.
Do you have mentors that help you? How do you maximize a mentoring relationship?
Sure. The weird thing is, I've yearned for one. Look for one that would fit maybe with what I want, to progress into. And also to realize that mentors will change in your life. You have a mentor to help you be a good electrical engineer. Then you realize you've done enough of this electrical engineering, you want to be a business person, even in engineering, but have that flavor. You need to change the mentor because maybe you've gotten to the limits of their expertise. So I think to foster the mentor relationship is two things. One, realize you're taking their time. So you need to give something back in some way, shape, or form. And I've heard crazy ideas of working for free or doing silly things for that person because it frees up their time to influence your life with their experiences. Mm. So it should be a give and a take. It can't just be a one way because that will eventually run out of steam. The other thing is to realize what you want. I remember in the MBA, one of our lecturers said he read about or spoke to a person that had a plan, an entry and exit strategy for every position that he went into. And that's quite a mature thing to realize that once you've learned what you can learn in that position, once you've added the value that you think you can add, and instilled it, not just frivolous, running out. Yeah. Then you need to move on because you're going to become complacent. You're going to become, seat warming in a way. Yeah. You need to move on to something else, and it's quite mature, I think, to say, okay, why am I going to this position? I want to learn the following. I want to add the value. Why would I leave this position? I've learned these things. Yes. I have a desire for these things. Yeah. And I think that's where mentor comes in. Yeah, they will help you with it.
You completed your MBA with Gibbs.
Sure.
Why did you choose Gibbs?
I did my research on Gibbs. What was weird is my manager said, I know you want to do an MBA, but we have the MDP, the ABB MBP, which is the Management Development Program. And I thought to myself, firstly, why would I do something that is specific to ABB when I want to build a skill set that is irrelevant of that specific culture? Then I was looking around. One, I wanted to do it locally because I wanted to continue my work. So I didn't want to be traveling. So it wasn't going to be UCT, it wasn't going to be Stellenbosch or Potchefstroom or any of the faraway places. So it would be either Gibbs in the form of University of Pretoria or Wits. And then the deciding factors were some of the people in my department have done an MBA and they did it through Wits. I asked them what their experiences were. And I looked at the Gibbs side and I really enjoyed what flavor they were going to bring. And I think also the AMBER accreditation level, it was quite high. And I think that was my, let's say, deciding factor that if I'm going to do this, make it the worst one, make it the most difficult one, and make the one that if I do succeed in this, then it's something to wear with pride. Not like just a regular,
What value has the MBA added to your career?
Sure. It's opened my eyes to everything. Before I was niching myself in technical, if I have to be brutally honest. I was seeing little splinters of myself trying to be business, but I was never looking at it in a financial sense, never looking at it as a P&L sense. I was never looking at operations with an outsider's view of how this can be, modeled as a production line. I was never looking at, the soft subjects like the humanities, those change management, organizational development, human behavior and performance. Those were tough subjects to do, but they were really challenging and they actually added the most value. Obviously, as an engineer, I would lean towards numbers, microeconomics, financial accounting, you just want to scoot over towards that. But you got to realize that the influences of this world are not the number crunchers.
Yeah. And lastly, what would you say to people who seek to follow in your footsteps? And what's the next big chapter in your life?
Sure. So it's some of what I've said before with have a plan. A plan is never set in stone, and no project, as I do projects, ever is followed on that timeline. There's always adjustments along the way. So you always have a plan, but you realize that plan will be different. So the thing is, have something, find the people that will add to it. Challenge yourself to do things that are out of your comfort zone. So if you're going to be an engineer, try and do the social thing, which is, try and talk to people and bring their ideas through.
Yeah.
Don't niche yourself in one position. If following me, being a completely technical expert in something is perfectly okay as well, if that's where you want to be. If you're following what I'm trying to do, is I want to be more of a business leader with technical background to actually have clout in what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to do some of the hard yards in the dirty areas. You know what I mean? You have to go to the customers that are your fingers are getting dirty just being there, kind of thing.
And next chapter in your life?
The next chapter I'm going to is, it sounds small, but it's not, is I want to manage people more into perpetuity, if I can say, not just like per project. I want to see the dynamics of how I'd lead people in those difficult times. Mm-hmm. It's easy to lead someone where they're already motivated.
Yeah.
That's not a test of a leader. A leader is really to bring someone out of the depression that they might be in because of their circumstance, and to develop them into something more than you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a challenge. My brother-in-law said this to me as well. He said, something you're going to really be challenged with is to manage people that have a different skill set to you. I'm surrounded with engineers. It's easy. I can relate to them. We have the same, let's say, moral standard for things. But for me to manage a CA would be a very interesting task. And I think that's where I want to go next. Yeah.
Trevor Dunn, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Congratulations again for all your achievements today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.